Okay, we're back with another episode of...
Probing Thoughts.
Forgot the name of the
We're
show.
back with another episode of Probing Conversations. I'm Andy Ducliffe.
I'm Scott Lost.
I'm Travis Rivas.
And we're here to cover Captain Marvel. So, one of the things that came up in the comic world recently is Avengers Endgame. So, Travis and I have very strict no trailer policies. Me, beyond the introductory trailer, the teaser trailer. After that, I won't watch it. Did you watch the teaser at least?
I saw the one that had the Ant-Man tag.
Okay. I honestly, it's been so long I can't remember which one I watched. But Andy, you do not have such policies. You watched the Endgame trailer without telling us what happens because we're spazzes. Did you enjoy the trailer? Is it something that seems to be engaging to you, or does it kind of seem like, yeah, this is another Marvel movie?
I liked it. So all I will say is that most of the trailer kind of harkens back to like the MCU's greatest hits, so to speak. So it's not like they're overshowing you what's going to happen, because like if you're invested in it for this long, like you're going to see it regardless, you know, of exhibit A and B. So most of the trailer was just sort of like little memoir vignettes of each of the main,
kind of like leading up,
and then
How we got here.
Right. So, and then there was like a few snippets from the Endgame movie itself. Okay. But very, very interesting. I'm very curious to see what happens. I like that they didn't show you know, what's specifically going to happen. They just kind of left it more open-ended. Which
is a smart way to go. I mean, one of the things that we have talked about before is that they already have our money. Like I'm already going to go. I'm already there. I don't want to see what else you're going to show me. Just give me the product. I just want to see it.
Right. I call, like, my whole reasoning is I call it the Age of Ultron effect. Leading up to Age of Ultron, they kept releasing trailer after trailer after trailer. And by the time I watched the movie, I was like, yeah, I've seen most of this already. Yeah. And so I was I was over it. I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. To the point where I started running out of theaters before movies because I was like, oh, crap, I didn't want to watch this trailer. And so that had been a policy for quite a bit.
When I saw Captain Marvel this time around, I had forgotten my earbuds because I'll bring earbuds with me when there's a trailer I don't want to see, and I'll play music and I'll close my eyes. I forgot my earbuds, so I literally threw my jacket over my head when the Spider-Man trailer came on, and I had my fingers in my ears and I was just humming, and it was a packed theater, so I could only assume that people thought I was a crazy person.
Right. Yeah, I've done that many a times. Yeah. You told me about the headphone trick, which I adopted later on. And but yeah, up until then, that was essentially the move. It was either run out of the theater, like, oh, I see Lucasfilms. Okay, I'm out of here. Yeah. I gotta go. Or I would stick my fingers and hum like quietly to myself, right? Enough for me to block out some of the noise. Right. But you gotta love that surround sound, and it's just like it goes through the fingers, and but anyway, that's great to hear that it looks interesting.
Yeah. And you actually saw me. When we saw Battle Angel Alita, I noticed that it was the Spider-Man trailer, and I ran out. Oh yeah. I ran out of the theater, and I was saying, "Oh God, oh God, oh God." It's like as though I was turtle heading.
Right.
Yeah, honestly, like that was my initial reaction. I'm like, damn, I got coffee, hit him quick. But no, then I was like texting you like, okay, it's over now. Then like Godzilla came on, and then you're like, nope, and then went back.
Oh, you didn't want to watch Godzilla?
No, I watched Godzilla. I watched it from the aisleway instead of going back.
And that looks rad. Like I love it. It looks great.
I will wait until King Kong shows up in that franchise, and then I'll be good to go. Yeah. One more trailer dropped recently was the Dark Phoenix trailer.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was in my. Did we have all the same trailers? Was that one of the trailers that was also in Captain Marvel?
It was, yeah, but I had seen it previously. And I'm actually going to give a spoiler warning for this one because I think the trailer is pretty spoilery. So if you don't want to know what happens to Dark Phoenix, you should probably jump ahead. I think they pretty definitively showed that Jean Grey kills Mystique in that trailer. That's what it looked like to me. So I don't have any knowledge. I haven't read anything previously, but it really looks.
It really gives you
the feeling.
The feeling that is exactly what happened, right? No, I agree. It looks. I don't know. It just kind of looks like all the other X-Men movies now. Like it's the singer versions and with Vaughn.
Yeah.
Like those are like they're just blending together now, and that's not exactly what I wanted.
No, because and you have another chance to do Dark Phoenix, and you could bring in the Shi'ar, you could bring in the Starjammers, you can bring in the McCrane Crystal and the Hellfire Club, and it just kind of looks like Last Stand all over again.
Same old stuff, yeah.
And so after seeing these trailers, I'm ready for Disney to get those rights back. I'm really ready to see what they do.
It's more of the same. It's been more of the same.
Yeah. We have a friend who really, really does not like these movies, and him and I always kind of go back and forth, where I appreciate them for what they are. Right. I like that they're the movie versions, and I can differentiate. But I'm starting to agree with him that I don't need to always see black leather.
Right. Like X2 for the longest time was the standard in which comic movies had to live up to. And then after a while, it was just like, okay, well, we have bigger and better things. That opening Nightcrawler scene will still be one of the most amazing comic scenes for me personally. But like you said, I'm very much ready for Disney to take the reins. Yeah. They can easily make Starjammers and the Shi'ar very viable because of what they've done with Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah. Guardians of the Galaxy was such a, for me, it's
unknown.
It's an unknown. As a lifelong comic book fan, that was never a book I would read.
Right.
You know, I would see it on the shelf and I'm like, no, that's like a little too far past what I even want to do. So, but yeah, so I'm very excited for that when the merger finally takes place.
Are you a little sad that I know Fox had some plans? They had, you're wearing an X-Force shirt. They were gonna do an X-Force movie. They were gonna do a Madrox movie starring James Franco. They were gonna do a Shadowcat solo movie, which I would assume is probably out the window now, and they're gonna want to do their own MCU style kind of movies. Right. Are you a little sad that those are probably gone?
No, not even a little bit. It's kind of like in Disney I trust at the moment, especially the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Right. I'm not worried about it, and from what we've gotten recently, it's just more of the same. Like I said, like the only thing that's been slightly different is the TV shows. Like the Runaways is very interesting, right? I don't even watch. What's the other show? The other X show.
Oh, well, Runaways isn't an X show, but there's Legion and then there's Gifted.
Gifted. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay, sorry. Legion was very interesting.
Legion's
right?
Great.
And so I really enjoyed that, and Gifted is also good, but it kind of lost me. Like I'm just kind of, I see it there, I see the new episodes, and I'm just like, I don't feel like dipping my toe back in that pool. So once Marvel and Disney get the reins again, I think I'll.
Andy, were you enjoying the direction that the X-Men movies were going, or are you kind of excited to see them go back to Disney?
I am probably the worst person you could ask. I have not seen any of the X-Men movies.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
The trailer seemed nice. I've seen the honest trailer reviews on them, and that's kind of
That's so weird.
Yeah. I think thematically it's something you would actually really connect with and really, really enjoy.
Okay.
Especially, my personal favorite is First Class.
I think I have X-Men right over there. Like at some point we're gonna have to watch that.
I guess so.
I see.
Well, then I
see
should
First Class right there.
I should record my movie review without having seen it
Yes,
first. Yeah.
yes.
Which is on my other channel. So hopefully watch that. I don't know.
We'll put a link in the description below. Andy does her reviews of movies that she's never seen.
Yeah.
So one of her most viewed is Star Wars. She never watched Star Wars for quite a bit of time, and she finally watched it. But she did videos.
Yeah.
So they're very interesting. Watch those.
Before we move on, I'll just say real quick that I am a little sad that we didn't get to see those other series of movies. I think the X-Men universe is as expansive, if not more, than the rest of the Marvel universe. If if Fox really could kind of harness what Marvel was doing, I think they really could have done a cinematic universe that rivaled Marvel. So I'm a little sad. I think Marvel is really good at what they do. It just feels a little bit of this little cookie cutter every time, and we'll get to that when we talk about Captain Marvel. And I think towards the end they were starting to do different stuff with Logan and Deadpool and what New Mutants look like it is, but Disney's gonna own the world, so it's
like they don't already.
We're all gonna have those like genetically engineered mouse ears on our heads in a couple of decades. So
okay, so
I'm not too excited.
Right. Oh no, I mean like I'm cool. I like Disney or whatever. Okay.
Whatever.
All right, moving away from the X world, we're gonna hop right into Captain Marvel. I was asked right after I watched the movie by a couple of people what I thought of the movie, and I said, and those people were female, and I was like, actually, I need you to watch it first, and I need you to tell me what you thought of the movie. Yeah. So with that said, Andy, what did you think of Captain Marvel?
I liked it. I didn't love it. Some storytelling aspects I thought were great. How they sort of subverted the typical expectations, good guys versus evil, scary-looking aliens. One thing that I kind of felt a little bit disappointed by was how I feel like the whole like feminist message was spoon-fed. Yeah. Like these are issues that like I personally deal with. These are issues that many women have dealt with, if not all women. So I appreciate the message. But like that one scene in particular where she's, that guy in the motorcycle is like, hey, you should smile more. It seemed like a little bit too cartoonish just because, the vast, expansive landscape of, sexism and misogyny is a little bit more complicated than that.
Right.
So, that was sort of like the whole...
They hit you over the head.
Yeah. It hit you over the head.
Hitting the nail with the hammer.
Right.
It was too on the nose.
There was no subtlety.
There was no subtlety. Like, hey, toots, you should smile more. That's why they call it a cockpit. Haha, get it? Because we have penises. Like,
I actually enjoyed that.
But it's because we have cockpits.
Yeah. Men with their penises is trying to mansplain shit everywhere. How dare you? No, so whatever.
Trying to put your cocks in our pits.
So yeah, but the scenes that I did like though that kind of showcased like the more like girl power message a little bit more organically, which is how Carol and her friend Maria were interacting with each other. That was like I wish something that they focused on more. So anyway, that's my initial thoughts on Captain Marvel.
Yeah, I was mixed to more enjoyable than unenjoyable. One of the big things that I noticed, especially in the first half of the movie, is that the editing seemed really, really choppy. And Andy, you might be able to talk about this a little bit more because I know you have more experience with that. That a lot of the shots seemed really quick cut. They didn't seem really to had the ability to breathe or to really react to what we were seeing. And then once we get to the scene where it's Carol and Maria at Maria's house in Louisiana, then the movie kind of seems to find its groove, and then the second half seems to kind of figure out what it's doing. But that was a real big issue for me. It felt very, very choppy. I thought most of the storytelling elements were there. I felt like most of the performances were there. It's just the way that the product was assembled that felt really off. Scott, what were your initial thoughts?
I didn't like it.
Really?
That's definitely why I wanted to go last. And I know this movie is a movie that's going to cause debate, or is causing debate.
Yeah. It's going to be the most divisive MCU movie. I actually wrote that down, is that I absolutely believe it's the most divisive one. You're either going to love it or you're going to hate it.
Right. And there's just, like, that's the world right now, right, that we're living in. And I've had some people post online, men and women, that were like, if you don't like this movie, you're a neck beard or whatever, and just trashing people, right? And I was just like, hey, I didn't like it. If you actually want to have a real conversation about it, I will message you privately, since a lot of people out here have not watched it yet.
Yeah.
So I don't want to spoil anything for anyone. But I personally didn't care for it. I have a lot of issues with this movie. Like you said, it seemed like disjointed. Like it didn't feel like a solid movie. Whereas you liked the scenes with the best friend. I had a lot of issues with how people were reacting to things in the world. Like, if you and I went outside and someone that we just thought was a dude turned around and was an alien, you'd freak the out. And there was too many people just being okay with what was going on. Like, the biggest reaction you got out of Samuel Jackson was Coulson gets shot. He turns into the scroll. He says something. The car crashes. He sees the scroll. He throws the jacket over the scroll and goes, "Oh, shields, nothing to see here. Keep moving." That was his whole reaction. Not like nothing to see here. What the F is going on, or whatever they could say in the Marvel movie, right? Yeah. But the reaction was very little. The best friend, her reaction, she sees herself right next to her daughter outside, and she goes, "What the hell? That's your entire reaction to seeing yourself outside?" I would be freaking the out.
I thought so too.
Right. So
she's taking this remarkably well.
There was a lot of that in this movie, and I'm just like, this is bad. Like, there's not enough real reaction, and it wasn't just. It's not because, hey, they're superheroes, they see weird shit. It was just everyone just seemed to be kind of okay with what was going on.
To some of that I was okay, especially with Fury. I mean, like, he's not in full Fury shield mode yet, but you got to figure that he's seen some form of weird.
Right.
Not full-fledged alien invasions and all this stuff, but I was able to.
It's aliens, guys. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? There needs to be more. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But aliens are fucking aliens. Like, you need to be reactive.
Your coworker, or the person you thought was literally your coworker, turns out one is dead, and then turns into this green extraterrestrial thing.
Right.
One would think that even the most hardened cop or whatever would be like, the f*** was that? So. And
I think the best friend's reaction to her being alive too was just weird. Like, it just didn't seem.
Yeah. That was kind of a big problem that I had with it, where I think I feel like the space from which she was gone was too long. Like, I think it should have been shortened to maybe at most a year, because one of the big elements of this movie is it's set in the 90s, right? And you've got a good 90s soundtrack and.
Oh, it was set in the 90s?
Right. There's Blockbuster.
It didn't beat us over the head with it with every scene. I'm sorry.
It's okay. But you have this character who's taken in the 80s. So the fact that it's set in the 90s doesn't even resonate with the character, right? Like, she's not going to hear like a Pearl Jam song and go like, "Oh yeah, I love it." And like, or like that scene later in the movie where they had No Doubt playing, which again, beating you over the head.
I'm just a girl. Literally.
But
she'd rather not be.
But that song doesn't matter to the character at all, because by the time she was taken and part of the Kree, she has no connection to it.
Right.
So she has no. It doesn't matter if it was in the 90s or not, is kind of what I'm saying.
It's the 90s stuff was for us, the audience.
Yeah.
And they really let you know that. Like it was too much. Like, it was blatantly too much. And I'm not one that would normally complain about something like that. Like, they were definitely trying to emulate Guardians of the Galaxy quite a bit with this 90s stuff. But there wasn't one time where I was like, "Oh, this is Captain Marvel's song." Like everything was 90s. Every transition was 90s. Like, there was not one scene that stood out in my mind that was like not 90s. Right. Like, they really bludgeoned you with it.
Mm-hmm. What did you guys think of Brie Larson's performance?
It was fine.
It's fine.
Yeah, I don't know. Nothing stood out to me negatively or positively. I don't know. I did appreciate that she had like a cocky sort of attitude in the beginning of the movie. You know, it gave it like a little something, I guess. But apart from that,
that was the aspect of her character that I liked. This touches with the lack of knowledge that I have of Carol Danvers as a comic book character.
Okay.
So I don't know how accurate her portrayal was to Carol Danvers, the actual character, right? So I liked the cockiness, like that you're speaking of. I liked the confidence. It wasn't cocky. It was more confidence than it was cockiness.
I guess, yeah.
But I could see the line, right? But I felt like her acting was all over the place, but it was to one extreme to the other. It was one scene she was super confident, and another scene she didn't know who she was and she was freaking out. Yeah. And I was like, where's the middle ground? Like, when are you just a normal person? You know, it was just like I barely got anything in the middle, and that was really like, this is weird. This seems like one of those movies that was directed by one director and then another director took over, and then they try to push them together,
which we know has happened in the MCU before.
Right, and that's why I felt like that, like, because it has happened. It feels like that.
Well, if you notice in the credits, this film has it does have two directors, but they're a team and they've worked together. But the writing, I think the screenplay is credited to no less than 4 people.
Oh, okay.
But going back to her performance, I think she's a really good dramatic actress. So I think the areas in which she really shines is the scene at Maria's house where she's reconnecting to who she is. That stuff is done really well. But for me, like the interacting with the Kree Star Force and some of the cockiness really didn't work for me. She didn't feel powerful. And one of the things that Marvel's been telling us is that Captain Marvel is the most powerful Avenger. Now, this is a team that includes the Hulk and Thor. Now, if she's going to be the most powerful Avenger, you really have to show us that, and it's got to be seen in the portrayal. And I just didn't get it from Brie Larson. I got the emotion, and I thought that stuff was great, but I never got that power or that confidence.
I don't know. I think I felt the power of it. Like, especially with the sparring scene with Jude Law.
Really?
Yeah.
That didn't work for me at all.
No, the scene itself didn't work. Like, as a scene, I was just like, this feels super forced or whatever. And it's just like, hey, I can't sleep. Do you want to go fight? Like, that's weird. But the what did work for me was like, you know, you're not supposed to just use your powers, right? Like, he was trying to tell her, like, you can't just blast me because you're not winning. Like, don't do that. And she ended up doing it. And then so in my head, I'm like, oh, all she has to do is do that, and she wins.
Right.
She doesn't need to fight anyone hand to hand if she doesn't want to. It's like, oh, well, you're done now. Yeah. Like, and that's for me, that's where I got the sense of how strong she was.
And that does have a great callback at the end.
Right. Exactly.
So,
I love that part. Not necessarily, I appreciated the, girl power stuff again, but just because...
She's a girl.
She's a girl, did you know that? No, but just because when he was like, this is your moment, you have to fight me hand to hand, I was like, why the would you waste your time with that? And then she blasted it, and I'm like, see, thank you. Like, It just makes sense.
So that was the one moment where I actually felt her power. Like, I felt the power of her blast. And going back to editing, I felt like even the sound design was poor, because every time she did a blast, it felt very muted to me. So like,
it felt like if they used like the blast sound effect from Spyro the Dragon every time she shot her hand.
Kinda, yeah, because so like compare it to Iron Man, right? When Iron Man blasts somebody, especially in those early movies, there's like a charge up, and there's a recoil when he shoots. You feel the power. You hear the power. And when she does it, she just kind of points. There's no recoil. And it's just kind of like... and it just comes out. And I'm specifically thinking that there's the scene when they're in the Pegasus base and she opens the door and it's just kind of like, and it doesn't feel strong at all. I don't feel it. I don't have that weight to it.
Going back to the best friend, I had a lot of issues with her.
Oh, I liked her a lot.
It's because you're a neckbeard. That's why.
Yeah, apparently. That's if you don't like the movie, that's what you are, apparently.
You're alt-right. You're a Nazi.
Right. Alt-right.
Alt-right, yeah.
The really bad wig bothered me the whole time. Her really bad hairdo, the bowl cut thing. I was staring at the whole time. I'm all like, that's weird. Like, I was just looking at it. Like, that was super weird. Like, that's on costuming.
She's a hardworking single mom. Like, she can't have the best weave at all times. So.
Right. Jeez Louise. She needs to do something better.
Jeez, Louisiana.
Oh, okay. And at times she seemed like a skit actress. Like
Skit
she's
actress?
like a skit, like
Oh,
a skit
skit.
actor,
Oh, yeah,
a skit
right.
actor. She seemed like she should be on SNL. Like in certain scenes, I'm like, I'm out of this scene right now. She's really pulled me out of the scene. But other scenes were very strong. So she was just a bit all over the place. So I didn't really care for that. And going back to the writing, where you were saying like it's all over the place, there was too many cheesy moments at really weird times.
Dude, yeah. The cheese is real with this movie, dude.
Just super cheese at super weird moments, and it's just like you guys are just doing some intense shit, and then now you're having this weird cheesy moment at a super weird time.
Well, they tried to do. It felt like they were trying to do a buddy cop movie between Carol and Fury.
And that's the stuff I liked. I thought that stuff worked.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like I enjoyed that as well. But talking about that, I think one of the more divisive elements of this movie is going to be the treatment of Fury and the fact that he, when we see it in current MCU, he's kind of like this badass super spy, but when we see him in this movie, he's more of he's a cat lover.
He's jovial.
Yeah.
He's jovial in this movie. He's laughing. He's cracking jokes. He's got high spirits.
And the reason that he has an eye patch is from a cat. Or a flirkin, whatever you...
I flirkin' hated that.
Hey.
I did not enjoy that. The joke was funny. The Coulson, I think they needed to play that up slightly a bit. There was a couple of times in the movie where the lead scroll was like, you shouldn't have that on your lap. You shouldn't be doing that. And then there was a couple of...
great, by the way.
He was the best part of the movie, like for me personally. But there were a couple of parts where they teased Fury losing his eye.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, that feels like a tease. Like, I didn't think about it. I think he was going to...
For me, like, after the car accident, like, that was an obvious tease. Like, how's your eye? Oh, it's fine. I'm like, oh, he's going to lose his eye in, like, a stupid way then.
Right. And that's where I'm just kind of, like, what made the joke... because the cat scratch itself was just kind of, it just happened.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh my God, your eye, I need to get looked at. And he goes, no, it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
It was very Luke throwing the lightsaber over his shoulder.
Absolutely. So awful in that sense. What made the joke work is when Coulson said, I heard that they tortured you and they took your eye out because you refused to give them any information. He goes, I'll neither confirm nor deny that. That made that all work right there. I'm like, I still hate it, but that joke made it work.
That's very Fury to use that as a form of intimidation.
Right. But I agree, going back to what you're originally saying about how Fury in previous movies, he's the badass super spy. He's cold. He doesn't really crack jokes. If they do, it's once in a blue moon and they're very short. This one, he was jovial the entire time. And it's just... And in this movie, he's already a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. So for the fact that he's going from this interpretation to what we know, it's just too much. Like, there's too much of a jump. It's super weird and jarring.
There's still about 15 years or 20 years in between this movie and the first Iron Man when we first see him.
Right.
So there's time, but
There's time for him to harden up and become...
But you kind of hope that it would be related to him losing his eye in some way or another.
And just like some semblance of the character that we know.
Yeah.
But there really wasn't. It seemed more like... It did seem like a buddy cop. It seemed like he was a beat cop who just happens to be part of S.H.I.E.L.D. That's what it felt like. He didn't feel like a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. He just happened to have a S.H.I.E.L.D. badge. The part of the Samuel Jackson Fury character that did work for me was this great degenerating CGI, like the age degenerating CGI.
I have that here too.
Fantastic. Like there were close-ups, and I'm like, I can't tell. I'm like, this looks good.
I think it worked especially on Samuel L. Jackson. And on Coulson, I noticed it a little bit more, especially in the last scene when he brings in the fake eyes. It seemed a little more, I guess, plastic would be the word that I'm looking for. But I never noticed it on Samuel L. I never, not once.
So many close-ups.
Yeah.
And it just not once did it bother me. Like Marvel, the fact that Marvel specifically has such great CGI compared to Star Wars, where you can see the uncanny valleyness to it. There's the uncanny valleyness, which you're seeing a little bit in Coulson. Like the fact that they're doing it as well as they did in this movie, as well as was that Civil War with Tony Stark when he's doing the grant. Yeah, Captain America. Yeah. So in the beginning, he's doing the show, the projection of his memory of, him as a younger man or whatever, and he goes, "Oh yeah, by the way, none of that really happened." Like the CGI making him look younger was fantastic.
But they've done that in almost all their movies. They did that with Michael Douglas in Ant-Man. They did that with Kurt Russell in Guardians.
Exactly, and that's what I mean.
They've got it down pat.
That's what I mean about Marvel specifically, though, because they're both owned by Disney. Yet in Rogue One, we can see the uncanny valley. So it's like, you guys are owned by the same people. How does Marvel have a better CGI company?
Well, I wonder if it's just the fact that, like with Leia's face at the end of Rogue One, obviously, like young Carrie Fisher couldn't be there to act as a stand-in, so they had to use a second person.
Nor could Peter Cushing.
They got someone, both actor and actress in those roles were played by people who look very close to them.
But even so, it's still like a separate person from the original image. So I wonder if that plays a factor in it.
Yeah,
but
possibly, yeah.
I'm not a scientist in facial recognition technology or whatever. So
not a CGI graphic designer, so I don't know.
Right.
Talking about Fury and kind of changes that were made to Marvel lore, there's a pretty big one here if you're familiar with Marvel and specifically the character of Mar-Vell. They changed the gender of Mar-Vell, and who is being played by Annette Bening. How did you guys feel about that one?
I didn't know there was a gender change. Okay. So I have zero knowledge of the comics, so I should...
So for those of you who don't know, in the comics, the character of Mar-Vell, who is played by Annette Bening, is the original Captain Marvel, who in the comics is a man, and he has his most famous story arc is the fact that he gets cancer, and there's nothing he can do to fight it, and he ends up dying of cancer. Right. It's one of the only deaths in comics that have stayed in continuity, and he hasn't come back.
He was such a powerful character, so the fact that cancer was the one thing he couldn't defeat was very important to that character. I was fine with the change.
Yeah, I was too.
Yeah, that was one of the changes that they've done where I was just like, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I'm good with it. Yeah. I don't have an attachment to that character. And in this instance, for it to be a man or a woman was not important, right? Whereas the Ancient One in Doctor Strange went from an Asian man to a white woman, and which was a huge problem.
Not just a white woman, like the whitest of white women.
A see-through person.
Yeah.
Like a see-through woman played it instead of an Asian man. The thought process by the director was that, we didn't want to be racist. But Asians are one of the least shown, races in movies, in TV. Like we are definitely underrepresented, and for that to be taken away, like such a powerful character, the Ancient One. So the plot in the movie is that, there's multiple ones. Well, couldn't we show one of the Asian people? Like, could you have made an Asian woman or something? Anyway, I digress.
Yeah, that's another podcast.
So that's anyway.
I also didn't mind the change. I think my big problem with Mar-Vell is that, so in the comics, Mar-Vell is such an inspiration to Carol. Yes. And because Mar-Vell was this role of Captain Marvel, Marvel felt very underutilized in the film as that inspirational character. I didn't necessarily understand Carol's attachment to Marvel and why that was such a strong bond. Maybe if Marvel, because if I remember correctly, Marvel was just kind of this scientist working on this drive that Carol was test driving, and Marvel gave Carol a chance. Maybe if Marvel was more one of Carol's flight instructors or more of this kind of formative figure to her, I would have felt that more.
Interesting, because I didn't feel that way. I felt like she was missing. She had gaps in her memory, so she couldn't remember why she was so important to her, and like another one of my issues was that 90% of this movie was origin. It was too much origin, but the aspect of those two characters was like, well, she has a huge gap in her memory. She doesn't know why this person is important, but she is. So every time I got a flashback, I'm like, this is just a fraction of what their relationship is. This isn't their whole relationship. It's just one instance that she actually remembers. So that's how I felt personally about that. So where you might have missed that. How did you come up on that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Like, the fact that there was, like, the memory wipe aspect to Carol Danvers kind of helped so that the snippets that we do see, it's just, oh, yeah, like, just this is a day of the life of Carol Danvers and just another conversation she has with her mentor, essentially. Mm-hmm. And then I think the scene where it's revealed that Marvel was actually collaborating with the Skrulls, and then everything explodes and yada yada yada. I think that moment where she's like dying in her arms just kind of like shows just the amount of closeness between the two characters.
Right.
Yeah. And I felt like Marvel was like one of the more organic characters in the movie.
Yeah, as did I.
Yeah. So well done on who was it? Annette Bening.
Annette Bening.
Yeah. Sorry, real quick.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. Like, for someone that has so many gaps in their memory, for the fact that she had that character specifically kept popping up, it means a lot in itself, right? Like, if you can't remember anything, but this one person keeps coming up, like, you have to assume that person is important. Like, there's a reason why that person keeps popping up. I can't remember, but there's a reason, right? So,
well, that brings me back to another issue I had. So we've touched upon the amnesia aspect of the movie, and I talked about kind of the time gap that Carol was missing. To me, having the amnesia story and the time gap doesn't work together for me, because amnesia stories are not that necessarily interesting to me as in that regard. When you have something like, say, The Bourne Identity, and I've heard this movie kind of compared to The Bourne Identity. What's interesting there is that you have Jason Bourne kind of rediscovering who he is as the movie goes on, because we see what his abilities are. So with Carol in this movie, she already kind of knows what her abilities are, so the amnesia aspect isn't as interesting to me. So I think the movie would have been more interesting if she was amnesiac, but less time. She was more like, who am I? And Jude Law is like, well, you're part of the Kree, and you're one of us.
Reverse it.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would have worked better for me as opposed to having this big gap of time.
Mm-hmm. I don't find that the gap of time is so much of an issue for me, but I do agree that would have been a more interesting take. It's kind of the normal take if you think about it. Yeah. Like, that's the take that usually does happen, but that's for a reason.
Yeah.
It's just like,
because it works.
Oh, I'm the most powerful person in the world, but I can't remember who I was when I was a nobody.
Yeah.
It's less interesting, right?
Like, one thing that kind of going back to like why you guys don't watch trailers or whatever, like the whole buildup that she was part of the Air Force, like that was not a surprise at all, because they actually tell you in the trailers.
Oh, okay. I didn't watch any of the trailers of this.
No, yeah, like in the trailers of Captain Marvel, it's just different snippets of her life. Uh-huh. So you see her as a kid at the beach, and then you see her kind of, I'm assuming boot camp, then on the wherever the planes land, I'm forgetting, tarmac. That's it. Okay. On the tarmac, and then airstrip, yeah. And then again, hey-oh. And then again as Captain Marvel, and they're all like getting up in the same way. So, I mean, I knew like the military aspect of her character was going to play a huge role. So when they try to like do that whole like, ooh, like who is she really? It's just like,
oh, we already know.
She's in the Air Force because you told us in the trailer. Like,
Yeah, and that was one of the issues I had too. Was some of the thematic elements were so close together. So they use this amnesia to show the thematic elements of her always falling down in these like right next to each other, and then towards the end you have these scenes where they were right next to each other of her standing up, and it was so on the nose.
it was stupid. Like, yeah, like I get it. Like it's playing on the theme of heroes get knocked down, but they always get back up. But
and they already did that with Captain America. Like that's one of Captain America's themes in the first Avenger. Like he's this little guy.
It's like his whole thing.
He gets beat up and he still stands up, And they have that great callback line where he's like, "I could do this all day."
Yeah.
And it works so much better for him.
Yeah.
Because he's a man.
Because he's a man.
We hate women.
We're just kidding. We enjoy them quite a bit.
Couple other.
I'm sorry, that was bad. We're gonna cut that all out.
One of the things I noticed when I was watching this movie, I saw it in a crowded theater, full packed house, and I noticed that there were multiple moments that were supposed to be pop that did not land at all. And this was a very pro Marvel, Captain Marvel crowd.
This happened in my theater as well, and I went with me and my best friend and one of our other friends. And this has happened multiple times where me and my best friend will laugh loud and the theater will not laugh. And he goes, "I don't even know what you guys were laughing at. Like, you guys were both thoroughly entertained and no one else gave a shit in the theater."
So in my theater, there were Captain Marvel cosplayers. And so there's the moment where she is fully powered up. After she talks to the Supreme Intelligence and she takes off the little power inhibitor. And she's got the power, and she kind of looks like binary, and she's got the flame power. And you can tell it's supposed to be this moment where the crowd is supposed to cheer, and nothing. And that really says to me that, I don't want to say they misjudged their audience, but they kind of misjudged some of their pop moments. Like the biggest pop in my theater was when she blasts Jude Law at the end. Like that was a great moment. That was very effective. Right. That worked.
Yes.
Because it was a build-up and a payoff. But the power-up moment, I don't know if it's because it was in the trailer or what, but...
I think it was because there was too many of them.
Yeah.
It wasn't... That type of stuff for this movie wasn't even a big surprise because she even did it... Like she was showing you how powerful she was in the opening scene with fighting Jude Law, with sparring with Jude Law.
And if you guys don't know, pop is a moment that's supposed to get a big reaction from the audience. There's supposed to be a cheer and applause or something like that.
Yeah, like kind of going on what you're saying of when she's being interrogated by the Supreme Intelligence, like the stakes didn't come across as that high to me. Mm-hmm. I took it as like, okay, the Supreme Intelligence is going to be like condescendingly like, oh, okay, well you tried, kiddo, but time for you to go in timeout. So then that montage of like her as a kid and then her as a teenager and then her in the Air Force building up to her standing back up again, like first of all, those memories when she was a kid weren't really mentioned before. There's kind of the go-kart. Well, there was the go-kart scene, but that was it.
Yeah.
And so when that happened, I just like it didn't. And then the beach scene didn't happen at all before that moment, right? Just she got knocked over by the wave and then she got back up. Oh no.
Oh yeah. See, I don't even remember. So well, that brings me back to what I was talking about, thematic elements. You can't have setup and payoff right next to each other in a film. So Scott, one of our favorite shows right now is The Orville, and without trying to spoil too much, there was an episode that I watched recently where the captain has a relationship with a character, and to show his tenderness, he puts his jacket over this character, and they set that up in the beginning of the episode. And throughout the episode, the nature of their relationship changes. And then we come towards the end and there's kind of like a life and death moment and he has to put the jacket over this character again. And that to me is kind of a good thematic element showing that he still has that caring and this tenderness for her, but there's enough space for them to set it up to have some conflict and to pay it off later. Where with the thematic elements in Captain Marvel, they show her getting knocked down multiple times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right after the other, and then immediately standing up.
There's no breathing room.
Yeah.
They don't earn the moment.
Yeah.
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 And it's too heavy-handed.
Yes.
Like there needs to be space there, like with the example that you gave. There's quite a bit of space there whereas there's none. Right. So no, yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Like one thing that I'm kind of curious about is like I looked up like the screenwriters, and it was I think 3 women and a guy. So I don't know. Part of me is just like, I guess to the female screenwriters, I just want to ask, like, was this edited to, maybe it was for like time constraints or budget constraints or something, but I mean, it just, like I said, like it felt like on the nose, cartoony in some moments, and it's
definitely,
just
yeah. I'm sorry. It definitely seemed that like it was written by multiple people.
Yeah.
Like it felt very disjointed.
And it was edited by multiple people. I looked it up.
Oh, okay.
There was one editor who I'd seen, like I saw his credits. I'm like, oh, that's really good editing. And then there was another editor who I couldn't find any other credits to their name. Mm-hmm. So I think maybe that first half was edited by that later editor that I mentioned. But yeah, the editing, as I said before, was all over the place.
Definitely an issue. Yeah. Definitely with the script as well. Okay, so we got some. We don't have that much time here, so we're going to kind of breeze through some stuff. A couple of the positives. It feels like we were like kind of harping, negatively on this film quite a bit. They're on more of the positive side of it, whereas I was.
I did enjoy my time in the theater.
So I wanted to enjoy this. I wanted to love this. So for those out there thinking that like I'm some kind of woman hater or whatever, it's the furthest from the case. I really wanted to love this, and there was just issues.
I'm a big fan of the Kelly Sue DeConnick run, and I wanted to like it as well.
I just don't care like about guy girl, like who the main lead is. Like I love the Wasp and the Ant-Man and the Wasp. I love the Wasp. Yes. She's fantastic. So some of the positives that I got, or one of the positives was a really fun moment was the Mallrats script with Stan Lee.
Yes.
Because that's exactly what he would be doing in the 90s. Mallrats came out. Mallrats was a huge part of my teenage youth. Like, oh my God, there's like they're talking about comic books in this movie that I love. I'm like, this is amazing. This is crazy.
But not even Mallrats. The Stan Lee tribute, the way that they changed the Marvel logo to be all Stan. I've seen some people on Twitter with their hot takes about Stan and credit and all this stuff. I'm tired of your hot takes.
Right.
Stan Lee is a legend. He what he has done for us as fans, what he has done for comics, it's incomparable. Maybe only to Jack Kirby.
Right. And Stan was just. You say what you will about his writing or his contribution to these characters. I think you're mistaken. I think those people that are overly criticizing him, I think you're just mistaken. Like these characters wouldn't be who they were without Stan Lee and Jack together. Yeah. Them together is what made these characters what they were.
And him advocating for these. That's
exactly what I was getting to. Stan Lee goes beyond just the writing of comic books. It's who he was to the comics community. The character that he brought out. The character that he was. Right. Spoke to the world outside and gave some credibility to the comic world.
And I'd said before that the Jude Law moment was the biggest pop. That was the biggest pop because once you realized what was going on, there was a collective gasp of, oh my God, they're doing this.
Everyone was all in.
And then when like the Marvel title revealed itself, everybody was clapping. There was not anybody who didn't react to that, and that shows you the power that this man had to large audiences of people. You had another positive that you wanted to touch.
I actually wanted to ask Andy, what major positives did you walk away from with this movie?
So I love the dynamic between Carol and Maria, just because it felt like it was kind of refreshing to see, like one that they actually like passed the Bechdel test. There are 2 women with speaking roles, not talking to each other, not about men or romance. And two, it's just the way that knowing that they kind of had that mutual struggle as like military women, and having to deal like with the sexism within the military industrial complex. They weren't seeing each other as like rivals. They weren't petty. They didn't show any of that. They were just like, look, man, like we've got to deal with the same shit. It's, let's have each other's backs and
we're in this together.
We're in this together. And I love the kid. What was like the daughter?
Yeah, she was
So
great.
Monica.
She was a fantastic
Yeah.
actress. I had no problems with her acting.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, this kid's good. This kid knows exactly.
If you guys don't know, Monica Rambeau, she actually grows up to become the second Captain Marvel.
Really?
So
Oh.
there was Marvel, who is the first Captain Marvel, and before Carol gets the title, it's Monica.
I knew her name sounded familiar. Okay, that's awesome.
And then later on, Carol becomes Captain Marvel because initially Carol is Miss Marvel.
That's right. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Maybe post Endgame we might get, maybe they'll switch it to where
Monica is Miss Marvel or something.
Well, I don't think they can do that because Kamala is Miss Marvel and she's got a pretty big following right now.
True. Step on some toes.
One of the things that I liked, and I think this is probably going to be controversial, I actually liked how the Avengers got their name. I liked that it was Carol's call sign, her flight call sign on the plane.
Yeah, I like that too.
Yeah, I wasn't too crazy about that.
Yeah, I
wasn't.
figured it would be one of those things that people kind of either love it or hate it, like the eye. I called it, and when he's like the Protector Initiative, and I'm like, her name's gonna be Avenger, and like they did it, and they started playing the music, and I was like, okay, I'm okay with it.
I didn't care for it, but I'm just like, it's whatever. It's fine. I'm like, I don't really like it, but it's fine. It's not like I don't care.
One of the other things that I liked, just real quick, I liked the mid-credits scene where...
The mid-credits always seems to be the more important one now, whereas the second one seems to
it's always like a joke.
It's a joke, yeah.
But the mid-credits where you see her show up in that moment, and it is like that got another big reaction where to see her actually interact with the Avengers and do you guys think that scene's going to be in Endgame? Does it look like that scene's going to be in Endgame? If you know, don't say.
My theater, I don't know, but my theater going to the reactions, it's crazy because this is the 11th year that we're in.
11th year. That was the 21st movie.
So this is the 21st movie. My theater lost their mind. Like they had no clue that the Avengers were going to show up, that they were going to see the Avengers in the trailer. Yeah. They all lost their goddamn mind. Yeah. Like they went insane. That was what was going on in my theater. And I'm all, really? Like this happens every movie. What
Did you have people who get up and started to leave when the credits started to roll?
No.
I did.
I did too. I was just like, amateurs.
I did.
So
this is legitimately the 11th year. You just need to know. My theater knew, but it just blew my mind why they were so surprised as to what was going on. I'm like, you kidding me? Did you guys just realize Bruce Wayne was Batman? Like, what's wrong with you guys? It was a great scene, but everyone lost their goddamn mind.
Well, not only that. Okay, so people started to get up and leave as soon as the credits started to roll in my theater. The people next to me knew to stay for the mid-credit scene. But as soon as the mid-credit scene ended, they got up. And I told them, I said, there's another scene. And they're like, there's another scene? Do you want to stay? And they were like, no. And they just left. And I'm like,
honestly, well, like the end scene, I don't know. Did you guys see the end scene? Yeah. Coughing up the Tesseract. It was funny.
It's fine.
But it wasn't...
But like I said, the second scene is always a joke, the last scene. So I get it. if they're on to the gag, right? Like they know that the last scene is really just usually a joke. You got the falafel stand or what a shawarma, and then you got the Captain America video, which was fantastic. And then this.
So the thing with the Flirkin scene, the person that I saw it with had this theory, and I couldn't make heads or tails of this theory, where he thought that the Flirkin coughing up the cube meant that Carol has an Infinity Stone now. And because of time travel, she's going to be able to use that stone. And that didn't track for me at all because...
You're doing too much.
Yeah, because Thanos has all the stones.
Right.
And this person also thought that there was a time travel element because when we see Carol in the mid-credit scene, she's the same age. Now, my assumption was just because she got imbued by the power of the Tesseract, it just kept her young.
Right.
That's my assumption. Did you guys get any kind of time travel sense out of it? Or...
Oh, I just assume, like, who knows what other side effects you get when your body absorbs all this energy.
That's
like,
right,
I figured youth was one of the side effects or something.
I was going with that, or the fact that she's on alien planets, and maybe time acts differently in those times. Like, you'll have worlds where, I was only gone 30 minutes. And then it's like, dude, you've been gone 3 years.
Yeah. Well, that's how speed of light actually works. The closer you get to speed of light, the slower time moves down for you, but the rest of the galaxy essentially experiences it differently.
And normal time, right? So, I didn't think... it's whatever. Like, yeah, she's the same age.
The last thing I wanted to touch on before we move to our final thoughts was Ronan. I thought Ronan was completely wasted.
Yeah.
I thought there was no point to put him in. He felt completely shoehorned in.
It's not the same actor.
No, it is. It is? It is. It's Lee
it didn't
Pace.
even look like him.
It's Lee Pace. But, you have this character who is fairly maligned as the weakest villain in the MCU. I think only maybe Malekith is thought to be weaker. And you could have done something with him. You could have added to his character, and he does nothing. He stands on a bridge and goes, "Oh, maybe we should leave. Oh, bomb the planet. Oh, this."
Right.
Just a waste.
Oh my god, he looked like a completely different actor to me. I think it was because they didn't do the black face paint, the war paint on him. Yeah. I was like, this just looks like a completely different dude. He sounded different to me. Like, he didn't even sound like, he sounded weaker. Like, because he kind of had that gravelly voice in the other one. Like, I don't know. He just sounded different. I agree he was kind of wasted, but at the same time, when you know a character's dead, like, I don't put too much stock in him. So maybe they kind of had those same thoughts. Like, well, this guy's dead anyway, so it doesn't kind of really matter.
Well, but they had, I forget the character's name, but Djimon Hounshu, who he was in Guardians as well.
Right. And he didn't have an overabundance of stuff to do. He had stuff to do because he was still alive, but it wasn't like he was a standout or anything.
No, but it was more enjoyable to see him interacting with the rest of the crew.
It was because he was part of the cast. He was part of the crew. But even being a part of the crew, he didn't have an overabundance of lines. The funniest part with him was when someone called him handsome. And, like, that was the most entertaining part of him. Like, besides that, there wasn't anything else. Was there anything else that hopped out to you? I have a couple of things, but I don't want to maximize all.
Sorry, what was the name of the Skrull General guy?
The lead Skrull?
Yeah.
Let's just call him the lead. I don't know.
Lead Skrull.
The actor's name is Ben Mendelsohn.
Ben Mendelsohn, the Australian sounding guy.
Yeah, the guy from Rogue One.
Yeah. No, like that scene where, like, he appears in Maria's house and he's, like, sipping on, like, a Slurpee or whatever, I thought was hilarious.
Yeah, that was great.
It's already a meme.
Yeah.
It's already a meme.
Oh, you've returned, Mr. Bond.
Yeah. No, he was so enjoyable. I enjoyed every scene with him. My comic book brain was struggling with all of it. And, like, even knowing what I know is what caused the issue. Because my brain said, Skrulls are bad. Skrulls are the bad guys. That's how it is. But they're called the Accusers, and their boss is Ronan. Yeah. And Ronan's a bad guy. Ronan the Accuser is a bad guy. So, who's the good guy? I'm very confused.
But that's that was one of the cool elements of the movie, is there was no good guy. Like, it's kind of a very much a...
I don't know. The Skrulls, at the end of the movie, Skrulls felt like good guys.
Yeah.
Kind of. So,
which is never the best idea.
Here's what I was hoping to see, and I think they still might do it. So they said that the Skrull homeworld was destroyed. I was kind of hoping that the Kree would be like, well, the Skrull destroyed some of our homeworlds as well. And to be this realization of, no, we didn't. Oh, all these planets are being destroyed. What does that lead to? Galactus. So I'm kind of hoping that maybe...
And they got the rights to Galactus and the Fantastic
Well,
Four.
they're going to get it. They're going to get it.
Oh, they don't already have it?
They're going to get it in a week. Once the merger happens.
Oh, wow.
So I'm kind of hoping that's...
They had Ghost Rider forever, so I thought by this time...
yeah, Galactus...
Ghost Rider, Blade...
Galactus is still Fox. Yeah. Ghost Rider was New Line. Blade was New Line.
Oh, okay.
I'm hoping that's a backdoor into...
That would be super cool. That would be super rad. I got a couple more things before we get out of here. The cat swallowing the soldiers, the accusers, where is essentially the same exact shot that they did in Guardians with Groot, where Groot like whoa, that's a lot of soldiers, and then Groot, the innocent one, impales all of them and starts banging them around the scene, and then they're all dead, and then he looks at them, and that's the moment. Yeah. The cat scene was almost the exact same thing, except for at the end, the cat ate them all. That just saved the rest. That saved the whole scene. Because essentially it was shot the same. It was the same feel. They were emulating Guardians throughout this entire movie, just from the Guardian timeline to this, which is the 90s.
Well, Carol is a Guardian in the comics. She is one of the Guardians.
Right.
So.
Yeah, but that doesn't have to do with this movie.
Right.
But yeah, the cat actually swallowing everyone saved it. Because I was watching them all. This is just Groot. Groot did this exact thing. Which
is another wasted element. Okay, I guess not. Because if the cat's name is Goose, actually, never mind. That was a bad thought.
The last thing that I have, I don't know what you guys have after this. Last thing I have, there was a lot of standing and posing. Just so much standing and posing. One of the things that I hate the most in these superhero movies is the superhero landing that Deadpool specifically makes fun of.
They did the superhero landing. Yay!
Yes, it drives me insane.
See, some of that stuff that I really like especially in Age of Ultron, that beginning shot of all the Avengers jumping.
That was fine. There was nothing wrong with that because it was within action. They were running and they did a freeze frame basically. Yeah. That's not what that is. It's literally someone jumping off of something and landing. They all do that land, and it's infuriating. I hate it. And then so Danvers stand and pose. It was essentially the land. Yeah. She would just, we get it. You're super strong. You don't need to do it. I think she did it about 4 times in the movie. I'm like, this is too much. And this goes back to what you guys were talking about, the heavy-handedness. We don't need you to keep showing us her falling down and then her standing up right away. We get it. She's strong. She's powerful. So there was just it. And Andy said this at the very beginning of the podcast. There was the girl power stuff. We get it. But you're just doing it way too much. There's something called subtlety, right? And this movie did not have it. There's no subtlety.
But I do want to say, if you guys like this movie, that's okay. If you didn't like it, that's okay. Everyone's allowed to have a different opinion. We're just saying there's a lot of these elements that didn't quite work for us. If they worked for you, if you enjoyed it, great. Enjoy the movie. I think. We're recording this after opening weekend. I think it made $150 million.
It's making all of the money.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So obviously it's resonating with a lot of people. We just had some issues with the way that the movie was made. I want to see a sequel, and I want to see them change some of these elements. I think Marvel is really smart about seeing what works and what doesn't work in their movies and making a course correction. I think the best example is going from Thor: The Dark World to Thor: Ragnarok.
Right. And not only that, sometimes there's just she might be super rad in Endgame. Yeah. Because I hated the Doctor Strange movie. I talked about earlier, they're just the whitewashing of all of the Asian characters was just infuriating to me to the point where I was like, I can't watch this movie. I watched it once and that's all I could give it. But then Doctor Strange, the character in Infinity War, I was like, this guy's great. this guy's awesome. Even in Ragnarok, I loved him. So it's not the character of Captain Marvel that I have a problem with. It's this particular movie. Right. So I'm hoping the bounce back from her character in this singular movie to her being in Endgame, and then the sequel, you know, will be that much better. And then I'm personally I'm actually going to rewatch this.
Yeah, me too. I'm going again tomorrow.
Yeah, you know,
I'm working tomorrow, so no, but.
Well, I do want to bring up, though, just it's important to draw that distinction. Like, you obviously were apparently accused of being a neckbeard, which...
Not me personally. No.
Oh, no?
It was a general statement online on Facebook. Someone saying, if you didn't like Captain Marvel, you're a neckbeard, this and that. It wasn't directed at me, but since I was one of the person that didn't care for it, I guess it was directed.
Yeah, I saw a comment that's saying that, you can have issues with the movie, but if you think it's the weakest MCU, then, you're a misogynist. And I actually happen to personally believe that this might be the weakest MCU.
I agree. I was really trying to think of one that I disliked more. Yeah, but and a lot of people's number one go-to is Iron Man 2. I actually liked that because that was the introduction to Black Widow, who I really like. So
what I want to just, I don't know, state real quick though, just as, I don't know, a thought exercise for lack of a better term. It's just these accusations that if you don't like Captain Marvel. See, I'm doing it now.
No, it's okay. That's who she was first.
No. But the sheer fact that someone dislikes Captain Marvel is valid, but I think it's important to distinguish, what is it that you're disliking. I know you two, I know it's not,
she's a woman. We just did that for an hour.
We just did it for an hour.
Exactly why we didn't like this movie. Right.
But, the people, the cesspool of the internet, just she's a woman, therefore I don't like it. Again, it's cartoony. There are some people that legitimately think that way, which is disappointing. But I think it's important to just distinguish that. Would you be making these same critiques if, Captain Marvel was played by a man as opposed to a woman?
Marvel, yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And, maybe apart from the obvious feminist message, the same critiques that we've had for the movie, I think would still stand because, it's more oriented on storytelling, editing, not the fact that the character is a woman. So again, I think it's important to understand those differences.
I think that's a good place to wrap it up. Sorry if these last few minutes seem kind of rushed. We're actually running out of battery right now, so we hope you guys enjoyed this. We'll hope you guys will be back for the next one. I'm Travis Rivas.
I'm Andy Ducliffe.
And I'm Scott Lost. You could find us at accidentalaliens.com, where you can pick up our books that we do there, along with other merchandise.
Mash that like button.
Subscribe.
Oh. I really hate the mash thing.
Mash it.
Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.